Hello, 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 and welcome to the RISMedia webinar, Creating Accountability in an Independent Contractor's World. My name is Cleve Gaddis, and I am coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. I am actually sitting in for Burl Workman, who normally does these webinars, but due to his travel schedule was unable to moderate today's webinar, and I am amazed at how many people have opinions on the topic of creating accountability in an independent contractor world. I have had 10 or 12 conversations with fairly high-profile people in the real estate industry over the last couple of weeks about this subject, and my goodness, is it something that people think about all the time. I want to remind you before we get started, if you'll stay on till the end of the webinar, we'll have an opportunity for you to download a few of the resources that we'll mention in today's show, one of which I think is extremely important. In fact, one of the resources I didn't even have myself because it wasn't provided to me before we gave it out as a resource, and I already went through before the webinar today and downloaded my copy of the resource. And Nate, I will tell you, it is some fabulous information. I'll get to Nate Martinez in just a second. I'd like to recognize our sponsor, Imprev. Bill Yeaman is on the call with us today. He's the President and Chief Revenue Officer of Imprev. He has nearly 30 years of experience in all kinds of technology marketing. Imprev powers real estate marketing for brokers, agents, and brands, and they support some of the most established real estate companies in the country, including over 250,000 agents. So, Bill, thank you for sponsoring the webinar, making it all possible, and I'll give you a few minutes to talk about Imprev.
Please, thanks for that. Yeah, we're very excited to be sponsoring today's webinar on accountability. There's some great content that's upcoming from our two guest speakers, but we also think a lot about accountability here at Imprev, especially as it relates to agents being accountable for supporting the firm's brand promise. And a brand promise can mean anything ranging from meeting those commitments that are made to a potential, seller when you're sitting at the kitchen table, ranging to supporting the brand style and aesthetic across every customer impression. And as part of a broader movement in the industry, Imprev has moved more aggressively towards automation, and specifically marketing automation. What does that really mean? Well, we won't go into detail of what Imprev is offering, but the result is that, brokers can now automatically replicate the best practices of the best agents. So as we think about accountability, by using automation, agents really don't have to think about being accountable, nor do the brokers in the brokerage. It's taken care of automatically. So we think this topic is an important one, and really excited about the content that we're going to hear again from Nate and Miles. So turning it back over to you, Cleve. Thanks for having us.
Bill, again, our pleasure, and thanks for sponsoring. I want to mention before we get started, all of you who are attending the call, you should have a questions tab. Unfortunately, my questions tab does not work like yours does, although I can see any questions that you post. If you have any concerns or questions that you need to raise during the call, feel free to just open and expand your questions tab, type the question in. Peter with RISMedia will be monitoring any technical issues that we might have, and then I will be monitoring the questions, which we might try to work into the presentation or try to get answered at the end. We're going to try to save the last 5 to 7 minutes for specific questions. In fact, we've already got one that was asked prior to the call, and we'll try to get those worked in. So just go to your questions tab if you have a question on anything we're discussing, and I will try to get it worked into the presentation. Our analyst is Nate Martinez. Nate's a friend of mine. Nate, glad to have you on. He's the broker and co-owner of RE/MAX Professionals in Glendale, Arizona. He has 30 years of experience in real estate. He is a seasoned negotiator. It is also an ABR, CRF, GRI, ePro, and FFR certified realtor. He firmly believes in the value of education, having trained hundreds and thousands of real estate professionals over the years, and he also is a speaker. So, Nate, welcome to the call.
Well, thank you very much. I'm excited to share. When you say 30 years of experience, it makes me feel older than I feel, so thank you.
Well, Nate, I guess it's interesting, but when I was giving your introduction, I was thinking to myself, can you imagine all the stuff he's learned in 30 years that he shouldn't have done?
Maybe 56 years.
that is some of the most valuable experience out there, is all the stuff that we shouldn't have done. But why don't we go ahead? I know first you want to talk about core values. I'll be moving the slides forward for you, Nate, as you see fit. If I go a little too fast, recognize it's because you're going a little too slowly. And if I go too slowly, you just tell me to move to the next one. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, yeah, I just want to start with core values. I think it's an important exercise in running the company. Over the years, we've had core values stemming from pages of information and pages of mission statements and vision statements. My partner, Frank Russo, and I are fairly simple in the way we run things, and a couple years back we had about 10 core values that we tried to adhere to, and bottom line we just kind of moved them down into 4, and we kind of update them every couple of years. But how we run our brokerage today is basically with 4 core values, and that's first one's to recognize. We want to make sure we recognize all our agents, their birthdays, their business and personal achievements, their production, their tenure with the company. You know, we try to follow them on Facebook to make sure that we're in tune with our agents outside of the office as much as inside the office. You know, and to inspire an agent, we're coaching, training. We bring in outside speakers. We teach wealth building and simplify. You know, we're in a business with paper and tons of paper and more addendums and more disclosures. We try to simplify the agent's life by providing a very simple but effective online management tool to manage all the documents that go through a transaction. And then we also have probably a larger staff than most. We're not a large company. We do have 6 locations. We currently have 160 agents, but we have about 20 people supporting those agents that are in employment. So the amount of support per agent is really high.
Now, Nate, real quick, the audio cut out just a little bit. Did you say you had 160 agents and 20 staff supporting them?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. Just wanted to make sure everybody heard that.
Yeah, and a lot of that is because we have 6 locations, so they're all little, you know, boutiques, if you will, in different communities. And then if we do our job right, and by recognizing, inspiring, and simplifying the process, you know, we want to help our agents excel. At the end of the day, you know, that acronym spells RISE, and it kind of just, you know, is in line with the RE/MAX, Rise Above the Crowd. So we can go to the next slide.
I guess one quick question before we move on. How do you think having very clearly defined core values puts you in a position to create an environment of accountability with your agents? I mean, how does that really help?
Well, you know what it does? It keeps us accountable. So every decision that, you know, Frank and I or our leadership team make is we have to look at these core values to make sure that every decision we're making is in alignment. And that's even, you know, we terminate agents if they don't act as a professional. And so it's always sad to terminate a friend or an agent that's been with us a while, but, you know, again, our reputation is very important to us, and we want to instill that we have professionalism within our industry.
And I never thought about that core values, creating that accountability on both sides of the equation, from the broker and then also to the agent. Very interesting. Okay, next slide.
You know, this isn't on the slide, but I'll just kind of tell you our vision statement is to have a positive, productive, and profitable office that inspires, develops, and supports learning-based professionals fully committed to their success. And in saying that, you know, we have a complete agent development system. So we just don't have training, you know, on Tuesday and the people take the information and put it in their drawer. We have weekly momentum training classes. At the end of the week, we have a momentum accountability calls, people going through our momentum training system. We have a mastermind meeting of those agents that are going through that training. And the momentum system is a great system that RE/MAX is subscribed to, and it's about 17 different modules. Some of the classes can go into 2 8-hour days, but most of them are a 2 or 3 hour class. It's the business planning class that is the longer one. But we really, are trying to have our agents become masters of the craft. We're honored to have a high production per agent, and I think a lot of it is the selection process, the retention process, and the recruiting process. We have mastermind meetings at 3 different levels as well. So the agents that are earning in excess of $250,000 have their own mastermind group that I lead. We have another group that is $100,000 to $250,000 production, and then we have agents that are earning less than $100,000 that are in a different mastermind. So we're really trying to have each one of those mastermind groups have like-type people. Most of the high ones might have a lot of team leaders in it, and maybe the ones under 100 is our lowest, are individual agents, maybe even team members on a team. But they all have their own issues, challenges, and direction of growth. So we kind of break it up into a production like that.
And how does that, what is that doing to help the agents sort of create internal accountability within the group? Is there anything that goes on specifically there?
Well, I think there is. I mean, when you have mastermind groups, there's some light rules around being a member of the group and participating and not just being there taking. So it's kind of self-policed, if you will. If somebody's not participating, then we ask them to run the next meeting, so it kind of gets them dialed in. The bottom line is we're really just trying to create an environment of learning and sharing. My business partner, Frank, and I, Frank's been licensed for 35 years. We met like 30 years ago, and we're at different firms, and we shared ideas, and a lot of the conferences we went to, we were big Star Power fans with Howard Britton, and he kind of taught us way back then is to share everything. So Frank and I used to share everything while he was at one firm and the other, and eventually we ended up at the same firm. But we get that same mindset. Between Frank's team and my team, we're well over 10,000 transactions that we've sold. And amongst our teams, our office is much bigger, of course. But we're all about what we've learned. The good, the bad, the ugly. We try to teach and be very transparent with our agents on mistakes we've made as well as successes that we've made.
One of the most important things. I just noticed Ed Anderson asked a question: can we get a copy of the PowerPoint? The answer is yes. At the end of the presentation, we will give you a site to visit where you can go down and download a full copy of the presentation. So let's talk about wealth and business building classes.
Right. So when we first opened up, every Thursday was our training day, and that was either myself or my business partner Frank doing the training, or us together, and then bringing either agents within the company that have a specialty that they can share with the rest of the group. Of course, that we still do. We do bring in outside speakers, 1031 exchangers, if you will. But our focus is not just teaching people how to sell real estate. It's definitely to acquire real estate. We have a lot of agents that a good chunk of their income comes from flipping. We have a lot of people that have multiple rental properties, and we even have a mastermind group that meets quarterly just of all the people that do the investing and flipping. And again, so it's like-minded in that group. And we also invite people into that group that want to learn about that, so they can be on the sidelines learning, taking notes, if you will. But we're really into helping agents create wealth. And again, we look at our agents as partners, and we want them to be part of our organization for a long time. And along the way, we want them to understand that you have to create wealth. You can't just keep trading your time for a transaction, because when you quit doing transactions, there's no more money to follow.
And so how does the focusing on wealth and business building classes, how does that ultimately help you increase agent productivity and performance?
Well, basically it's helping an agent be a better, you wouldn't want all your agents to be tenants, selling the American dream. They have to, either be a homeowner or want to be a homeowner, and then once they become a homeowner, it's teaching them how. Give them, I think a lot of times, Cleve, it's giving people permission sometimes they don't feel that they're worthy of buying a rental house. Sometimes they don't feel worthy about having a high income. So we kind of try to give them permission and teach them if that is a path that they want to follow. You know, we've kind of laid the breadcrumbs, if you will, of what we've done that has been successful and what we failed at, and we share that so that makes them a better them.
Excellent, excellent. Let's talk about changing models.
Yeah, you know, I mean, as you know, I'm a RE/MAX broker. When I joined RE/MAX 25 years ago as an agent, the RE/MAX model, I think, was designed to recruit only high-producing agents. And even when we opened up our franchise 15 years ago, that was kind of the mindset of the Frank and I is continuing on that path. But we work in a community here in Phoenix where, you know, our threats are, you know, high split companies, meaning 100% companies with very low cost, you know, where the brokerages might have 2, 3, 4, and 5,000 agents and they're paying a very small cost, but it probably is more directed to a lot of the part-time agents or people that actually just have a license, they want to hang it. And then as teams grow and they become their own company, if you will, almost becoming a mini brokerage, those are the threats that I experience as a broker owner. So if you move the slide, we are focusing, and well, I guess there's another slide, but this is just showing our production per agent, as RISMedia has recognized us as having the highest production per agent in the state of Arizona in their top broker report, and having us ranked 32 in the U.S. So we're proud of that, and it's I kind of say it's by design, but it's basically with 160 agents doing about 4,000 transactions a year. We're high-producing agents. Pretty much everybody's a full-time agent all the time. So if you could flip to the next slide, our kind of new model, we still have the old model, but today we're looking at the new model that I think is important is recruiting new agents or agents that have closed at least 1.5 million in the last 12 months. It's no secret in the Phoenix marketplace that our real estate schools have been full probably for the entire 30 years that I've been a realtor, and they're always producing new licensees. The challenge is that what I heard a statistic that 11 months after being licensed in the Phoenix marketplace, 87% of them have left the business. That's leaving only 13% that, not saying that they're productive, it's just saying that they're still licensed somewhere. So, you know, we haven't been one to recruit out of the real estate schools because it's, you know, it's a high turnover. But it's not to say that if somebody comes to us that's brand new and they have the right tools and credentials, if you will, we do have the systems going through our Momentum Agent Development Program that we can, you know, hopefully create a successful agent. But the benefits of our new model, we're trying to go not just after the top agents, but, you know, maybe agents that are new but they need some help at getting to the next level. It's definitely the benefits. It's easier to recruit that type of agent as opposed to somebody that.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's easier to recruit somebody that's, you know, closed however many sales that is in your market over the last 12 months?
Well, you know, I think if we were going after somebody that's closing 30 to 100 transactions, that's a big machine, right? And they have a lot of people involved. They have a lot of escrows going, and unfortunately, most agents live paycheck to paycheck. So the fear of losing any revenue by a move holds people there. You know, people. Let's face it, people don't like change, right? So I think it's a little bit easier to go out and grab somebody that's a little newer and has a desire to grow their business as opposed to somebody that's already got a machine working for them.
And do you think once somebody has some volume under their belt on their own, that they understand really just how difficult it is to be successful in real estate on their own, and so they might more embrace it? Even though I know your entire brokerage is not a specific team, but you're working together as a team, the entire brokerage, it sounds like.
Correct. Yeah. You know, we have some people that stated themselves, but you know, most of the agents are very open to helping anybody within the brokerage. again, if you bring somebody in at 1.5 and you turn them into a $3 to $5 million producer, it's easier to elevate their production than bringing somebody in that's doing 20 or 30 million and trying to move the needle. Okay. What I've experienced, because Frank and I, when we started our brokerage, we were very team-centric. We helped build teams, and that's been the focus of our brokerage. But what happens is some of these teams get good, just like Frank and I did when we decided it was time for us to move on and do our own brokerage. We've experienced a lot of that. We've had a lot of teams, not a lot of teams, I would say in the last year we've had 3 major teams within our organization leave to do their own mom and pop shop, which, you got to take your hats off to them for doing that, and it's a whole different animal for them to experience. In a good market, it's great. If the market starts to slow, I hope everything works well, but when the market slows down, then the agent has a lot more debt that they've acquired by having additional rent, employees, phone systems, etc. But in a thriving market, they're still friends, and they're competitors, but again, I think our focus now again is trying to focus more on recruiting, the $1 to $3 million producing agent. And it's also easier for them to adapt to our culture, because each team creates their own culture, right? And
that's true.
And as they have different business coaches, they tend to follow their business coach's advice, and they also tend not to be as involved in the company because they're being coached and led, where they're paying, in most cases more than what they pay to work for RE/MAX to a coach. So and that's really interesting. That's been an interesting phenomenon over the last probably 5 to 10 years, where we talked our agents into getting different coaches and brought a lot of coaching into our offices from outside, all the great coaches out there. And now that they're coached, they tend to follow the coach's mindset as opposed to our leadership at some point.
So it might create a lot more stability and structure within the model for you to at least have a good portion of the coaching and mentoring and development coming from internal. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and that's what we implemented 2 years ago with the Momentum program, and that just keeps getting better and better, And like I said, it's a great landing place for agents, that want to, level up, if you will, and build a stronger business than they currently have. We have the platform for them.
So one of your last comment on your hiring and training leaders slide is more quality touches with our agents. How often are you communicating with, or your coaches or mentors communicating with the agents that you have on staff now?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know if there's an exact touch. It's a conscious effort. I know today we, ironically had 3 birthdays of our agents today, and before 8:15 this morning, I reached out to all 3. 2, I got a phone message. 1, one of our agents just turned 89 today. He works in a boutique area at Sin City West, a retirement community, and this gentleman is so full of life. And to be 89 years old, and trust me when I tell you this, he works every day, does broker tours every Tuesday, he's doing open houses. He told me, he goes, I don't think real estate is a job. He goes, I made so many friends, so many great friends through this system. And I told him, I said, yeah, for you it's a lifestyle. And he does very well. And to think about that, 89 years old, very mobile. But I think touching them is, touching them on, like I said, birthdays, and, just acknowledge them, acknowledge their kids. One of the things that we do is pay for A's. So every student that is a member of, it could be a grandchild, a child, a sibling, if they turn in their report cards, any kid that gets an A, we give them $5 for every A. And trust me, we'll get like 100 report cards in, and we pay out all these A's, and we make it a big deal at our office meeting each semester. And we pay out in cash for these, for these kids. And we also give out an iPad or something to one of the kids just randomly in the drawing. So again, we care about their kids, we care about them, and it's just part of our culture. What here's a selfish point. All right, here's a selfish plug for our friends at Imprev. I mean, Imprev's been a big supplier of the Design Center and the RE/MAX system for forever. And just, real simple. I mean, these brochures are easy to make with our system. And again, it's hard to get all the agents to utilize the great tools we have, but I utilize them. I'm a selling agent. And the first example on your far left, that's a brochure that's pretty much auto-populated, where our MLS imports the information right into our Lead Street system, and the photos move right into one of the many brochures I can just click on, and they're automatically made, if you will. The second one is a kind of a front and back, and that's kind of for a little bit higher price point. We call it the RE/MAX collection. And so they're designed in there, and we just email them out and have them printed. The first on the far left is just printed on regular type paper. The two-sided one on the right is printed on a cardstock, kind of a high gloss finish. And we just do the amounts that we need for the house, and it's simple. I mean, why go out and recreate the wheel?
My guess is from an accountability standpoint, my guess is that having the systems in place to actually get the agents to be able to produce what appear to be very, very high quality marketing materials is something that's important. And I remember attending a webinar that actually was hosted by Bill with Imprev, and saying that really the new model is moving to not giving the agents the tools to do it, but actually having the tools internal to the brokerage to do it for them, which I thought was an interesting concept. Are you doing some of this stuff for your agents?
We are. We have different levels of that we've implemented, and again, the agent just has to go on and give the permission, and we'll push them. We'll push them a flyer, a virtual tour, a just listed postcard, a just listed email template to them within 24 hours of them entering the house into MLS. So that we are utilizing some of those tools, and then there's automatic postings on Facebook. We use a couple different vendors as well. We have some automatic postings that happen for our agents on YouTube as well. So we're trying to provide the tools again to help the agents. Again, we're here to support real estate agents build a better business, and there's so many great choices out there. We just want to be one of them. And again, this is another brochure that happened by just automatically populating photos from MLS, pulls over the verbiage from our MLS. Again, so it's quick, it's easy, it's fast. And yet this is a four-page brochure. This house is about $1.5 million. It didn't take us much to put that together and send it off to a printer. We've also brought in a full-time graphic artist that our agents can do custom work with, and he's our employee, but they can hire him out on designing anything that they want designed.
And just send them a full package over. I love it.
Mm-hmm. I think, looking back at my 30 years, basically mastery is the key. I think you never get enough training. You're never too old. I'm constant. Burrow's my coach, and I believe in getting coached, and I believe in getting designations. My GRI and my CRS designations were probably my fondest designations that I got back in the late 80s when I was licensed. They gave me the direction to build a strong foundation. So, so I would just think, I start every day with a positive outlook, kind of a miracle morning type morning. I'm always practicing scripts, dialogues. I think agents should. I think, again, after 30 years, being 56, practicing realtor, running a team, running a real estate company, you have to stay abreast because the market's changing. The way agents work is changing, and it's fun. It's fun to reinvent yourself every few years.
It's nice that you've been in the business for 30 years and are still focused on that. One last quick thing. Your firm was actually involved in a lawsuit where one of your agents was involved in an automobile accident. I think the agent passed away, or somebody in the accident passed away.
Yeah. All parties in the accident.
Judgment that came out, and this is very sensitive with independent contractor relationships. Just real quickly, give us an update on what happened and what happened.
Okay, well, unfortunately, a dear friend of ours, and great agent, great husband, father, etc., got in an automobile accident that took his life and the driver of another car. And it's going on for several years now, but we got cited in the lawsuit where where they were trying to break the independent contractor status. And I thought it was just important to bring out, because that's what we're talking about, is keeping agents accountable when they're an independent contractor. You can only keep them accountable to the level of the law, right? And if you cross that, you could run into some challenges. We've won the first lawsuit. They took it to the Court of Appeals, and we won that, and they're still going to Superior Court. And this is just going on. It takes a lot of time and energy. That's not doing anybody
a lot of
any
money.
good. Yeah, we got, of course, it's covered in their insurance, but yeah, a lot of money is being spent on these attorneys, no doubt. But in the state of Arizona, and what the court noted was that as a broker, our responsibility to supervise agents basically only has a few things. One is to manage their real estate transactions, the use of disclosure forms and contracts, and the filing and storing and maintaining real estate transaction documents. That's what our state law says that the broker has to do. That's the responsibility of the salesperson. When you get into requiring, and this is real scary to teams, right? Because a lot of teams require you to come in and do things, but once you start requiring and you start to maintain discretion over the time and the manner of how they travel to and from business, you got to be real careful. And really what I wanted to bring this up is the accountability of the broker for yourself, to your brokerage. You got to make sure that each one of your agents, whenever they switch cars, and they do that often, that you're named as an additional insurer on your policy. Because trust me, if something like this happens, the attorneys dig in, and in their investigation, they're trying to find ways where maybe you didn't do that, or it's a lot of work, it's a lot of headache, and unfortunately, these two wonderful men that passed in this accident, that's the biggest loss, but it's also the loss of, I think, about 4 years of lawsuits, and all the stuff that goes along with this. And what they're trying to prove, and if they were to prove it, it would change probably the way all real estate contracts would be in the future as far as the independent contractor status of real estate agents. So, if you wanted to look at a copy of the article that was written by the Arizona Association of Realtors, you could probably go to aaronline.com and look for that article. Or we could maybe
that was
if they wanted
it. aaronline.com. Is that what you said?
All right. Yeah, and I'm not sure, because if you're not a member, you may not be able to get in there, but maybe we can send it out if they have an interest.
Maybe that's something we could get to RISMedia and they could shoot it out to everybody. Let's move on. Next, we've got Miles G. Murphy VI, who is Vice President of Sales for Mark Spain Real Estate, who's in Alpharetta and Athens, Georgia, so that's the metro Atlanta area, and then where University of Georgia is. He has experience building high-performing sales teams through coaching and leading, as well as championing company culture. He's also an active charitable investor, serving on the board of directors for the Kula Project. Nate's a 30-year veteran of real estate. Miles has been in the business for, correct me if I'm wrong, but about 4 years. Nate is not a millennial. Miles is still a millennial. So two entirely different perspectives on creating accountability in independent contractors. And Miles, we appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on board. It's funny, Nate's had more years in the business than I've had on this planet, so it'll be an interesting departure as far as just approaches to the industry. But glad to be here.
Well, we appreciate you. So let's talk about creating these two-way expectations and how that's applied in the Mark Spain team.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really like what Bill mentioned about kind of the brand promise when it comes to his business, and what Nate mentioned with just expectations on their part of the business. Because for us, when it comes to independent contractors, we just like to do that on the front end in a big way. Asking them. We have a very long interview process, very robust interview process, and through that, we find out what are your expectations of us, not simply these are our expectations of you, but it's both sides, and we even write that down so that we can revisit it, throughout the, the business relationship if for some reason we get off track or, start to miss our goals.
Interesting, interesting. And how have you found really making sure that they're able to communicate with you clearly on what they expect from the company and what you expect from them, creates that accountability over a long-term relationship?
So we like to focus on what they're really trying to achieve and kind of use that as a guiding, route to hold them accountable to the actions that they need to take to achieve those results. So, a part of the recruiting process that we go through is really dialing into that big why and using that not in a manipulative way, but in an encouraging way, so that we can ensure that they do reach their goals and they are successful. Now, we don't all reach our goals every month, every quarter, every year, but if we can reference those in coaching opportunities, I think it sets the stage for a genuine relationship where they know that we care, and we're just using that as a tool to remind everybody of, why we got into business together, what we agreed to do, whether it's on our end, whether we agreed to provide coaching, the right tools, obviously the business, in our business we provide 99% of the clients, and then what they agreed to do, which was, absolutely carry out a great client experience. We only work with full-time realtors and a number of other, items that they agreed to do, and just make sure that we're both following through on that.
And when you have a discussion with an agent who is not performing the way you want them to perform, you started out with, as I understand it, reviewing what they were expecting from the company first, and then you only review what you're expecting from them.
Yeah, so we definitely believe in extreme ownership, and if somebody is, quote unquote, failing in a role or in an opportunity, we first and foremost want to look at ourselves and kind of see. We take it very personally, and we want to know: did we provide them all the tools to, to thrive? Did they have, everything that they needed to, to at least make a go at it? So we start there. So when we have that, that genuine conversation that's, built, we like to call it a relationship of candor. We start with, hey, first and foremost, I want to apologize if maybe I haven't coached you the way that you best receive coaching, or, so on and so forth. And then from there, typically, like I said, we're not trying to be manipulative, but typically we have provided what we said we were going to provide. And so if that is the case, which I said typically it is, then we would move on to the other half of the conversation, which is, during the recruiting process, these are some of the things that you committed to doing, time blocking, staying organized, prioritizing your clients' issues, or just making sure that the client experience stays top of mind. These are the things that you committed to doing, and how do you feel that you're doing in those areas? And then based on the responses, we can kind of go down those various roads of the conversation, and just kind of keep it moving down that path of, these are the things we committed to one another, and how are you doing them?
But it sounds to me like it's always a two-way street. We just had a question from Dennis Scott, who wants to know if you just said that you provide 99% of the prospects for your agents.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, we have a little bit of a different model. It's a large. We are a brokerage, but it's a team model. So like I said, we have a very robust recruiting process. So we've had about 600 people in the last 45 days apply, and we're at about a 3 or 4% rate of acceptance when it comes to people who actually join the team, because it to that effect, it's not a general brokerage. So team model, and we produce 99% of the leads. It would be 100%, but every once in a while somebody will sell their brother's home or something.
You say it's a robust recruiting process. How many hours would you say you're spending with people as you bring them through the recruiting process?
Well, for me, it's definitely very robust. In my role, I'm looking for, very high impact, high level director roles. I mean, every role in our company is crucial, but for the specific roles I'm looking for, it's very robust. Probably, to answer your question concisely, 10 to 12 hours minimum across
Wow.
4 meetings, sometimes 5, and that doesn't include the references, which take a big chunk of time in addition to that. But I have some support for that.
And think about how that differs from most of our recruiting processes out there in the world. Anything else about habits?
Yeah, so we're really big on habits, and we can typically dial, and if somebody is not reaching their goals, we can typically dial into it very quickly by looking at their calendar and by simply saying, okay, so you're not achieving the results you're looking to, show me your calendar. What does it look like? What are you doing in the morning hours? We're very big on using those AM hours, as many suggest, as the holy hours. Just getting, blocking and tackling and really focusing on generating new business versus just handling the business. So yeah, as far as the habits, we're, very big on that. I mean, and it's also very well-rounded, and for some it might be overstepping boundaries, but we like to ensure that our folks are very healthy. For our organization, we have about 110 people in our company, and kind of similar to, I believe, what Nate was saying, where it's high staff support for the agents. For us, it's about 40 staff and 70 agents, independent contractors. So you can kind of see that ratio. But for us, we definitely focus on those habits and making sure that, I'm sorry, I got a little off topic there, but focusing on those
Good. It's good.
and making sure that they're following through on the different things in the morning hours.
And so when you want to understand what activities they're carrying out on a daily basis, you start by referencing their calendar. That's what you're saying, right?
Absolutely, just the time blocking, just kind of focusing on the big rocks and making sure that, there's a million things that they could do, but what are the few things that they should be doing, and just discerning between those two.
Talk about inbox mastery, and how does that help with accountability?
Yeah, so again, we have a high volume team model. So, again, similar to Nate, the Atlanta market's a little bit different, but our agents last year, I believe, averaged right at 35, 36 units per person for that year. This year we should be around the same, 34 to 36 per person, per agent on the team. So with that comes a lot of emails, a lot of distractions. So, let's just say each agent is holding maybe, let's just talk about listing agents. Maybe they have 25, 30 listings each. That's typically 25 husbands, 25 wives, potentially, 25 sets of lenders, 25 attorneys, etc. So just staying on top of that, staying very organized, for us, we believe, creates that opportunity for excellence. It's one of those things that you get. It sounds very simple. I just think people overlook it. But if you can stay organized and stay on top of, simple things like your email, your voicemails, your text messages, it's the only way to thrive in a model like ours.
So we just had a question come in from somebody who says, hey, if you're going as deep as looking at their calendars, it sounds like that might be micromanaging, and you might be treating them more as employees than independent contractors. And how do you make sure you're not crossing the line there?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. That's a really good question, which leads perfectly to the next slide of how we lead. We definitely lead through autonomy and flexibility. So the main thing about the calendars that I'd like to mention is that here at Mark Spain Real Estate, we're actually booking the appointments for the agents. So they're not receiving leads, they're actually receiving appointments. So in order to do so, we have an inside sales department that has, computer screens all over the walls that show the agent's availability. And then we use an if this, then that type of scenario when the phones ring, as far as who can work these areas, who can work this price point, who's available. That's really a big thing for us. So it's kind of like a game of Tetris. So due to that, we have to have access to all their calendars. There definitely is a fine line between micromanaging and then simply keeping them booked up with new appointments. So yeah, I hope that answered the question. But yeah, due to the appointments,
Absolutely.
we have to see that.
And you were talking
It's also a safety concern for us. We like to know where our people are, because when you've got 70 agents that are doing the volume of business that we are in, in Atlanta, we like to do just keep an eye on that for their safety.
Let's talk about some of the things you're doing to help your team members, and then the next slide is fascinating for me, is how you want to create a monomaniacal focus for your agents. So maybe you can them and creating that monomaniacal focus. You can talk about those two things together.
Okay, yeah. So the previous slide, what was that? I was just how we're helping our team members.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so for us, we definitely, one thing that Mark's always been really big on is just investing in our team members. We do have a different model to where we're not afraid to get into business with folks that are not native to our industry, just like I was not native to this industry and was able to, sell upwards of 100 homes my first year, respectfully and humbly. Selling real estate is not rocket science, but doing it at a high level, like most of the people who are listening now probably are, can be very difficult. So we just believe in training and investing, and that's not even a self-righteous type of approach to business, because we know that that it's going to have a huge return on the investment. It's not just because we want to do nice things for our agents and train them. It's that we know that it's going to come back full circle. So, for instance, we actually brought in a nationally or recognized coach tomorrow and Friday, very high-profile name, and then rented out some space locally for him to speak to all, actually the entire company, not just the agents, for the next 48 hours. It'll be 8 to 5, and that's the kind of thing we do from time to time. So right now we're spending upwards of, it's in the hundreds of thousands when it comes to training, coaching, and mentoring, as well as the leadership that we already have on staff. And with that, kind of getting onto that next slide is just that monomaniacal focus. That's something that we like to kind of beat that drum a little bit. Again, our model is a little bit different, where everybody kind of sits in a certain seat on the bus. So without going into too much detail, we do know that sometimes in the industry, the downfalls of independent contractors, people who are running, maybe a one-man shop, they're getting sidetracked here and there because they're the sign guy, they're the photographer, they're the courier, the showing assistant, the buyer agent, the listing agent. You get the gist. Well, here at our organization, a hyper focus in one area. So we've got a photography department, a courier department, a buyer department, a listing department, a client concierge model, a marketing department, so on and so forth, accounting, the whole nine. So with that, we do have to be careful, because you don't want to create a fragmented process, but rather we like to look at it as a compartmentalized and highly focused process, to where the agent knows that, client-facing, they see the agent and the client concierge. Behind the scenes, there's about 7 people working every single sale. So for us, if we can get everybody focusing on their one thing, the results follow.
And as the concept, the less we get them to focus on, the more they will hold themselves accountable, and it will just sort of make sense that their results will get better and better.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We like to eliminate as many obstacles as we can. I mean, if we ask, it would be very hard to hold, or not, it would be harder to hold some of our folks accountable if we had just, heaps of responsibilities, on them, as far as wearing all these different hats. But when they have, 1 or 2 main focuses, and really it should be one, it creates for a very healthy, very simple conversation, and our agents tend to respond really well to it.
We did have a question from an attendee who wants to know if you at Mark Spain Real Estate require the brokerage be listed as an additional insured on the agent's policies, automobile policies.
Yes, we do. We sure do.
Good. Okay, agent productivity. I know you talked earlier that your agents were at about 33, 34. units apiece, and I assume that was what you're intending to address at this point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of mentioned that earlier, but like Nate said, those are impressive numbers, just like he has out there west. But to do that, you've got to work on these different areas of the business because, I'm not sure what the latest stats are for the average units per agent in the country, but if I were to guess, it's probably 20% of that, maybe less.
Yeah, seven or eight. I don't remember what last year's numbers were, but certainly not that high.
Sure. So yeah, we've found that some of the things that we've already talked about today help them to kick it into that next year, and that's why you have to have that extreme focus.
One of the listeners said, hey, how in the world do you generate all those leads? And I know you're going to talk about systems and processes now, but maybe you could address that just a little bit. Being an Atlanta resident, I will tell you, it is very rare to drive anywhere in Atlanta and not see a Mark Spain billboard. So I know that's one of the answers for generating leads. But answer that question while you're talking about systems and processes.
Sure. I'll be happy to answer that. So I'll be the first to say that that's not really my lane, so I don't want to speak out of turn. We have an excellent client, our director of client experience, as well as a director of innovation that handles a lot of that. A lot of that is driven through the technology side of what we do, whether it's social media and just very addictive and appealing content that we put out there, whether it's ways to work on your home, and that drives traffic to our website. And there's also the traditional mass media, the billboards, the radio, the television spots, the closed captioning. Everything that we're doing is driving the traffic to our website and making the phones ring. So again, not really my lane. I'm probably doing it a disservice, but I would say that that's one area that we've been very blessed in for 22 consecutive years, as far as just that's our number one thing we do is create leads, and at a very high level. And like I said, these aren't leads. These aren't just leads. These are appointments. So yeah, we're really proud of that. So
do have a question real quickly before we go to the last slide. How do you handle time off with your independent contractors, especially when you have a calendar and a schedule, and how are you addressing when they need to be off so that appointments don't get set for times when they can't handle them, I guess?
Yeah, so that's another really good question. I mean, for us, again, getting back to that previous slide with the autonomy and the flexibility, we're very results driven and very results oriented. At the end of the day, as long as we get there in an ethical and moral route, we're not altogether concerned on the path. It's like I said, as long as it's in culture and it protects our brand and the client experience is second to none. So as long as we get there, if they need, life happens. We have some people that are, single moms or single dads with 3 or 4. Yeah, we even have some with 5 kids, and they do have that flexibility and autonomy to take off, and the vacations. To be fully transparent, those are handled very organically throughout our company. What I typically see, it really doesn't touch the staff a whole lot. What I typically see is agents covering agents. Kind of like, I'll take care of it for you now, you'll get me when I go to Europe in 6 months or something like that. So, and then kind of onto the point of this slide here with great systems and processes, we're heavily Salesforce based, so it's really easy for us to kind of, with a click of a button, get someone's inventory or someone's calendars meshed right up against someone else's while those folks are out on vacation.
And the Salesforce you mentioned is the software you're using, the CRM software?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, Salesforce.
Got it. Let's, if you don't mind, I know we've got one more slide, but I'd love to move right on into questions because we've got some really good questions. And one of the first questions was, and Nate, I think somebody listening wanted to know how the car accident had to do with creativity in an independent contractor world, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think it has to do with doing all the things you need to do to maintain the independent contractor relationship and not trying to step over that line. And you were just mentioning that because had you stepped over that line, the result of that lawsuit might have been very different, but I'll let you answer that question.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think my big concern is always when teams are mandating their agents to do things, it can get over the line. This person was an independent agent on his own, and trust me, what they're really trying to pierce is that corporate veil or the independent contractor agreement. So you need to make sure whatever your state law is, along with federal law, that you stay within that realm. And you know, the old adage is you can't make somebody come to an office meeting. You can't tell them a direction to go or anything that gives them any type of direction that could come back to haunt you. I just wanted to really just put that slide in just to have brokers on the call, you know, just make sure they go back and check and make sure that they have all their insurance in place.
Just say, hey, be careful. Somebody has asked, one of the attendees asked Miles, what kind of fee are you charging for your leads? And I believe that's something that is handled in the commission split, but I'll let you answer that to the extent you want to.
Sure. So that's something that we definitely review through the recruiting process. However, to answer it concisely, there is no charge for the what is referenced as leads. However, again, I want to reiterate that they're not leads, they're appointments. But that's all part of the commission split. So, you know, once it's very simple when we go through that recruiting process and we get together on an opportunity. Once we handle that process and going over commission splits, everything else comes with it.
Do you set, and again, Miles, and Nate certainly chime in as well, but do you set production goals for your agents? And then second part of the question, once the home goes under contract in your agent structure, are the agents doing anything from there to closing, or is all that being handled by closing coordinator, administrative type?
I'll start off an answer. You know, being that we run a brokerage and not a team, even though I do have a team and my partner has a team. So basically, all the teams kind of run under our umbrella, and they basically have their own closing coordinators and so forth. The company also has a couple of transaction coordinators as well that the agent can utilize, and there's a fee for that service. And by the way, those two closing coordinators are actually independent contractors as well, and they're working for multiple agents. And so we don't require anybody to do anything in our model, because we have, you know, mom and pops, people have been doing real estate for 30, 40 years, doing it the way they want to do it. And again, as long as they're doing it ethically, morally, and treating the client with dignity and respect, and the cross-sell agents that way, we pretty much stay out of their hair. But we do have services for those that want them, and we don't require to use the services if they don't want them.
Okay, Nate, Miles?
Yeah, so yeah, again, ours is a little bit different. We definitely have some minimum standards that are actually pretty robust for our agents. Again, we have a very different model, but our agents are operating at, you know, a high level of productivity. So so we try not to, and I know this webinar is mostly broker facing, but we try not to, without coming across crass, have a bunch of A players with maybe some folks that may be considered B players, just because we know potentially what that can do to culture. So if maybe somebody is temporarily operating at a B player level, we do whatever it takes to quickly get them back to where we feel that they are and feel that they were when we got into business with them. So yeah, with those, the expectations and the minimum standards are something that we're really big on, and when those aren't met, we do part ways.
A couple other quick questions, because I know we're just a little bit over time, but we're going to close this down fairly quickly. This is for Nate and Miles both. Do you have a no driving and texting policy in your independent contractor agreement?
I'll
start.
No texting while driving?
Yeah, I don't believe we have that currently. Again, that would be handled by our business manager, Alexander, who reviews that on their first day. I've got to believe that we put that in there when we went independent on January 3rd, but I can't answer it effectively.
Okay, Nate, how about you?
You know, I have to take the fifth on that one, and I know we've we're constantly rewriting our policies and procedures manual as laws change and stuff happens. I'm going to check with Shannon after this call and see if that's in our newest revision. We're released.
You've got yourself a to-do list from today's call. One final question:
Yes.
Are the people who handle your closings, are they licensed?
Yes.
So that was another listener question. Real quickly, for those of you who are interested, you can go to workmansuccess.com/contractor. We had a couple questions about RESPA, Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, and we've got a great article for you titled Independent Contractor Status Under Fire. It's by Bernice Ross, who is CEO of realestatecoach.com. It is a great 12-page article on specific lawsuits and what happened in those lawsuits where independent contractor status has come under fire, or people have tried to pierce that independent contractor veil, as Nate said. From a marketing perspective, we've got tons of good stuff from Nate Martinez, just sold postcards, open house invitations, market area news, team newsletters, luxury home magazines, all kind of stuff, and you have access to that when you go to download the free gift. And just because we're at the very beginning of October and 2017 is right around the corner, you'll also get to download a free copy of the 16 or 18-page 2017 business plan workbook in an editable PDF file from Workman Success Systems. Thank you again very much to Bill Yeaman and also Imprev for sponsoring today's webinar. We hope everybody got at least a little something they can take from the webinar and apply in their business. Thank you so much for joining, and we look forward to talking to you on the next webinar.